Welcome to Beyond the To-Do List, a podcast about productivity. I'm your host, Eric Fisher, and this is a special Shortcast edition brought to you in partnership with Blinkist, the app that delivers key insights from top nonfiction books and podcasts in just 15 minutes. With Blinkist, you can explore more episodes like this one, covering topics like productivity, mindfulness, leadership, personal growth. And after listening to this episode, click the link in the show notes or go to Blinkist.com and start a free trial, and then search for Beyond the To-Do List to find the over 70 plus episodes of Beyond the To-Do List that are in there as shortcasts. You're gonna love them, just like this episode. Hello, I'm Eric Fisher, and welcome to the shortcast of Beyond the To-Do List. In every episode, I talk to people with fresh ideas to help you be happier and more productive. Do you ever just wish you could be left alone to work? Of course, there are many solopreneurs and self-employed people whose work allows them to do just that. But for those of us that work in companies where communication and collaboration is inherent in the work we do, it's harder to sustain that solitary work mindset. While it's tempting to get on without any interference, working alone does require us to master one key skill: self-reliance. Today's shortcast is all about three key skills of self-reliance: resilience, perseverance, and perspective. We discover how some of the greatest writers from history can teach us about these skills in ways that work in modern life. If we can bounce back, keep going, and see the bigger picture, we have a greater chance of succeeding, whatever we want to achieve. The point is growth. Work can't just become an endless slog without any progress.
You know, it's not just a matter of saying, I'm going to soldier on. The key word is the ability to reframe. Why did this happen? What am I here to learn?
John Jantsch is the author of The Self-Reliant Entrepreneur, 366 daily meditations to feed your soul and grow your business. John is a marketing and entrepreneurial expert, and he's also a fan of literature. He likes to take inspiration from the writings of some of the all-time great authors and thinkers. In this shortcast, John and I discuss three values inspired by passages from famous writers: resilience, perseverance, and perspective. John explains how procrastination, often thought of as a negative, can actually be seen as a sign of resilience. He describes how being uncomfortable, a feeling we aren't used to in the modern world, can give us a valuable sense of perspective. But we started by discussing one of America's great authors, Henry David Thoreau, and how his writings about mountains have a lot to tell us about perseverance and the power of repetition.
Thoreau writes about mountains quite a bit. You know, in this one, I'm talking about the idea that our business is our practice. Working on our business is a lot of what this one has to do with. So you want me to go for it?
Yeah, let's do this. Let's read this one.
Okay. The first dozen times. Let me suggest a theme for you: to state to yourself precisely and completely what that walk over the mountains amounted to for you, returning to this essay again and again until you are satisfied that all that was important in your experience is in it. Give this good reason to yourself for having gone over the mountains, for mankind is ever going over a mountain. Don't suppose that you can tell it precisely the first dozen times you try, but at him again, especially where, after a sufficient pause, you suspect that you are touching the heart or summit of the matter. Reiterate your blows there and account for the mountain to yourself. Not that the story need be long, but will take a long while to make it short. That is from letters that Thoreau wrote. I think that one particularly was written to Nathaniel Hawthorne in 1857.
The section of a line in there is that for mankind is ever going over a mountain. It is what struck me. And I just couldn't help but think, yep, we all are always going over yet another mountain.
Things become monotonous because we no longer pay attention. We're no longer mindful when we're doing them. And I think that one of the core messages I was trying to get across in this is that you're never done. I mean, you may think you've perfected something, but if you stop learning from it, the practice of it, then you are probably done. And that it will stale. It would no longer evolve. It will no longer bring as much value to the world. I've owned my own business for 30 years. I've been talking about marketing as a system for, a good 25 years. of that. And the concept itself, still blossoms for me. I mean, it's still very much alive and evolving and changing. And I tell people all the time, I do a lot of training of consultants that use the duct tape marketing system. And I tell them all the time, I'll never be done with it.
I like John's reframing of repetition as a useful practice, not monotonous boredom. Just like a mountain is a big piece of landscape to conquer, our goals may take us longer and be harder to achieve than we think. There will be plateaus and even times when we have to double back. We may feel that repeating footstep after footstep isn't getting us anywhere, but those footsteps are progressing us, and that's what perseverance is all about. One of the other great American writers that John has been inspired by is Mark Twain. Twain used a phrase that stuck with me, indestructibly content. I asked John to explain how unpacking this phrase can give us some clues to another key aspect of self-reliance, perspective.
In life and business as entrepreneurs, we can get content. And there's nothing wrong with content necessarily, except that I think that's when mediocrity shows up. I mean, I'm not suggesting that you always have to be striving, and I'm definitely not the hustle and grind camp. But I do think that if you're not staying curious, if you're not figuring out how something could be better, if you're not challenging yourself, you're not growing anymore. And I think that's the challenge with indestructibly content, is that you stop growing. One of the things I was really struck with is how used we are to being comfortable, and travel sort of shakes you out of your comfort zone, and it's inconvenient. And sometimes that's why people get mad on planes and in airports, and you see all kinds of crazy behavior because we're not used to being uncomfortable anymore. And I think that there is some value in intentionally experiencing being uncomfortable from time to time. I know there are people that talk about like the whole cold baths and the whole cold showers and that kind of stuff to actually intentionally make yourself uncomfortable. I think what it does is it has the value of bringing back into perspective everything that you have, everything that you get to experience. That may seem a little out there for some people, but I do think that that's parallels this idea of being content, is that, if you're content, you're probably not doing your best work.
We all have times when we slip back into our comfort zones and don't challenge ourselves. But John is right to pick up on this. By embracing discomfort, we can gain the perspective necessary to see that life isn't so bad. And there are great opportunities out there if we can do what is necessary to take them. So with perspective and perseverance covered, it was time to examine a much talked about concept, resilience. I asked John to read a passage he had chosen by American historian and author William Wells Brown, then explain how it highlighted the differences between perseverance and resilience.
It's not always those who have the best advantages or the greatest talents that eventually succeed in their undertakings, but is those who strive with untiring diligence to remove all obstacles to success, and who with unconquerable resolution labor on until the rich reward of perseverance is within their grasp. Then again, let me say to our young men, take courage. There is a good time coming. The darkness of the night appears greatest just before the dawn. It's worth noting that this is William Wells Brown, 3 years in Europe, and it's worth noting that Brown spent some time as a slave. So with that context, perseverance and resilience takes on a heightened meaning. So sometimes you persevere without an answer. You don't know why you're showing up. You just, history hopefully has maybe taught you to trust yourself enough to try it again, try it a different way. So, that in that sense, perseverance, is sort of the fighting between I don't want to do this and I do want to do this. Sometimes resilience shows up in the form of procrastination. And a lot of people talking about good words, bad words. A lot of people think of procrastination as a bad thing. I can't tell you how many times throughout the course of my career where I had gained the experience or the wisdom to know when to wait and not to just push through something because it's like, I gotta make something happen. To not call that client back tomorrow and ask them if they got my proposal, but to actually, wait and let whatever it is that's guiding us all around here, all the strings, around here, actually decide when something's going to happen. And I think that, that's a part of resilience as well.
I like the idea that often the best idea is to not take action straight away. Sometimes it is better to wait. That insight comes from experience, which in itself comes from resilience built by experiencing setbacks and learning that different approaches work in different circumstances. And I can vouch for the fact that John's approach to productivity, finding lessons in old writings and applying them in a mindful way to the challenges that face us today, really works. Thoreau can help us reframe repetition as useful practice. Mark Twain reminds us to have perspective by not allowing ourselves to become indestructibly comfortable. And William Wells Brown reminds us that obstacles are just there to be removed. If you want to hear more shortcasts from beyond the to-do list, be sure to hit follow on the show page. That way you can be notified when new episodes come out. I'm Eric Fisher. Thanks for listening to this shortcast of Beyond the To-Do List.